Admiral Corks of the Galactic Defense Academy stared at the holographic display with what humans might call bewilderment. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sure sign that his massive intellect was struggling to process what he had just witnessed. The battle footage from the Kepler 442 conflict had been playing for exactly 7 minutes and 32 seconds, and the silence in the auditorium was so thick you could cut it with a plasma blade. 217 cadets from 43 different species sat frozen in their seats. Not one of them had moved since the clip began. Even the Zephyrian twins, known for their constant chittering, had gone completely silent. This was unprecedented. The footage showed a single human soldier, designation unknown, facing down 3 Void Serpent war machines. Each machine stood 12 meters tall, armed with enough firepower to level a small city. The human was maybe 1.8 meters at best, carrying what appeared to be, well, frankly, it looked like scrap metal welded together by someone who had never seen a proper weapon before. "Pause the recording," Corks commanded, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. The hologram froze just as the human soldier was leaping through the air, somehow defying 3 different laws of physics simultaneously. In the frame, you could see the exact moment when logic gave up and went home early. "Now then," Corks began, his voice carrying that special tone professors use when they know they are about to say something that will make everyone uncomfortable. "Who can explain to me what we just witnessed?" Silence stretched longer than a Vegan poetry recital. A tentacle rose hesitantly from the 3rd row. "Sir, I believe we just watched a human commit suicide in the most inefficient way possible." Corks nodded slowly. "A reasonable assumption, Cadet Blurp. Anyone else?" "Sir?" A sharp voice cut through the quiet like a neutron blade through butter. "Permission to speak freely?" Every head, tentacle, and sensory organ in the room turned toward the source. In the back row, barely visible behind a towering crystalloid student, sat a human cadet. She was small, even by human standards, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to be laughing at some private joke. "Granted, Cadet." Corks consulted his datapad. "Thompson." Maya Thompson stood up, and if you did not know better, you might think she was about to recite the lunch menu. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual, which immediately made every other species in the room nervous. Humans only looked that calm when they were planning something absolutely insane. "That soldier, sir? The one jumping around like he lost his mind?" Maya paused, and her grin widened just enough to make Admiral Cork's primary stomach clench. "That's me." The silence that followed was not just quiet. It was the absence of sound itself. It was the kind of silence that made you check if the universe had accidentally turned off its audio settings. Professor Vex, a Mantarian with over 3 centuries of combat experience, slowly turned his compound eyes toward Maya. "Cadet Thompson," he said carefully, as if speaking to a potentially unstable explosive device. "Could you repeat that statement?" "Sure thing, Professor. That footage you just showed us? The human soldier making those 3 void serpents look like confused house pets? That would be me. Well, technically it was me about 6 months ago, but you know how time works." Cadet Blurp's tentacles went rigid. But that human destroyed 3 war machines with what appeared to be. He consulted his notes frantically. An improvised weapon system constructed from debris. "Oh, that old thing." Maya waved her hand dismissively. "Yeah, I call her Betty. Made her from parts of a crashed transport and some leftover mining equipment. She's got a real nice kick to her." Admiral Corks felt a familiar sensation that he had learned to associate with human involvement in military matters. It was the feeling of reality taking a coffee break and leaving probability in charge. "Cadet Thompson," he said slowly, "are you claiming that you single-handedly destroyed 3 Class 7 Void Serpent assault mechs using improvised weaponry?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds way more impressive than it was," Maya replied, scratching behind her ear. "I mean, those Serpent pilots were terrible. Honestly, I think they might have been drunk. Or maybe they were having some kind of mechanical failure. because their targeting systems were just awful. The Zephyrian twins finally broke their silence with synchronized gasps that sounded like air being let out of a balloon. "Impossible," declared Cadet Vorthak, a Klaxonian whose species prided themselves on their tactical analysis. "The mathematical probability of a single infantry unit defeating 3 mechanized assault platforms is approximately 0.0001%. Maya tilted her head. "Huh. Well, that's awkward, because it definitely happened. I mean, I was there and everything." Professor Vex leaned forward, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Young Thompson, perhaps you could elaborate on your methodology." "Sure. So there I was, right? Supposed to be on a routine patrol with my squad, but then Jenkins had to go and step on a plasma mine, and Rodriguez got herself eaten by some kind of space bear thing, and Captain Williams was busy having what I can only describe as an extended conversation with a tree that turned out to be carnivorous." She paused to take a breath, seemingly unaware that every being in the room was hanging on her every word. "So anyway, I am all alone with nothing but some scrap metal and a really bad attitude when these 3 serpent mechs show up. And I am thinking to myself, Maya, this is probably going to hurt quite a bit." Admiral Corks realized he was leaning forward despite himself. Around the auditorium, 216 other beings were doing exactly the same thing. But then I remembered something my grandmother used to say. "If you are going to do something stupid, do it with style." So I grabbed all the metal I could carry, found a nice big fusion cell that was only slightly leaking, and got to work. "Got to work doing what, exactly?" Professor Vex asked, though he sounded like he was not entirely sure he wanted to know the answer. "Building Betty, obviously. Look, the way I figured it, those serpent mechs are designed to fight other mechs or organized infantry units. They have got all this fancy armor and shielding, but it is all focused on stopping the kinds of weapons they expect to see. They are not designed to handle someone crazy enough to basically build a rocket launcher out of garbage and fire it at point-blank range." Cadet Blurp's tentacles were now vibrating with what could only be described as existential confusion. "But the physics, the structural integrity, the complete lack of proper safety protocols." "Oh, the safety protocols were definitely lacking," Maya agreed cheerfully. "Betty had about a 50-50 chance of exploding in my face instead of firing properly. But sometimes you have got to roll the dice, you know." "And the other 2 mechs?" Admiral Corks found himself asking, despite his better judgment. "Well, after the first one went down, the other 2 got a little more cautious. Started trying to flank me, use proper tactics, that whole thing. So I did what any reasonable person would do in that situation." The pause stretched long enough for several species to start calculating jump routes out of the galaxy. "I blew up the fusion reactor I was standing next to." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Cadet Blurp falling off his chair. "You did what now?" Professor Vex whispered. "I blew up the reactor. It was already damaged from the fighting, so it did not take much. Just had to overload the containment system and run really, really fast in the opposite direction. The explosion took out both remaining mechs and left a crater about 3 kilometers wide." "And you survived this how exactly?" Admiral Corks asked, though he was beginning to suspect that asking humans logical questions was fundamentally pointless. "Oh, I did not survive it," Maya said matter-of-factly. "I died horribly in the explosion. Took the medical team 4 hours to put me back together again. Really annoying, actually. I missed dinner." The room erupted. Well, erupted might be too strong a word. What actually happened was that 216 alien cadets simultaneously experienced what humans might call a mental blue screen of death. Systems overloaded. Probability calculators crashed. Several species began making distress calls to their home planets. Admiral Corks raised a hand for silence, though it took several minutes for the various sounds of cognitive dissonance to die down. "Cadet Thompson," he said finally, "are you telling me that your tactical plan involved deliberately killing yourself?" "Well, when you say it like that, it sounds kind of morbid." I prefer to think of it as aggressive problem-solving." "This is insane," muttered Cadet Vorthak. "Humans are insane." "Hey now," Maya protested mildly. "That is not fair. Most humans are perfectly sane. I am what you might call a statistical outlier." "A statistical impossibility is more like it," Professor Vex said, though there was something that might have been admiration in his voice. "The real question," Admiral Cork said slowly, "is why you are here, in my academy, instead of in a psychiatric facility or a maximum security prison." Maya's grin returned, twice as bright as before. "Funny story about that. Turns out, when you single-handedly destroy 3 enemy mechs and save an entire colony from invasion, the military brass gets all excited and starts talking about medals and promotions and special assignments." She paused, clearly enjoying the effect her words were having on her audience. "But here's the thing about humans, Admiral. We do not really like being told what to do. So when they offered me a nice, safe desk job pushing papers around, I told them exactly where they could stick their paperwork. Said I would rather go back to school and learn how to blow things up more efficiently." "More efficiently?" squeaked Cadet Blurp, who had managed to climb back onto his chair. "Oh yeah. See, the thing about my little adventure on Kepler 442 is that it worked, but it was really sloppy. Took way too long, used way too many resources, and the whole dying thing was just plain inconvenient. I figure if I am going to keep doing this kind of work, I should probably learn how to do it without getting myself killed." Admiral Corks felt a familiar headache building behind his eyes. It was the same headache he got every time he had to deal with humans and their complete disregard for reasonable limitations. "Cadet Thompson," he said carefully, "are you telling me that you view your previous mission as a failure because it was not destructive enough?" "Not destructive enough, too inefficient, and way too hard on the local infrastructure. I mean, that crater I mentioned, that used to be a perfectly good mining facility. The colonists were not exactly thrilled about that." The Zephyrian twins began making a sound that could charitably be described as whimpering. "But here's the thing," Maya continued, apparently oblivious to the growing atmosphere of panic in the room. "Humans are really good at learning from their mistakes. That whole incident taught me a lot about improvised weapons systems, tactical deployment, and the importance of having a really good medical team on standby. And that is why you are here," Admiral Cork said, beginning to understand the horrible, inevitable logic of human military thinking. "Exactly. I figure if I can learn proper engineering, advanced tactics, and maybe pick up some alien combat techniques, I can be way more effective next time something like this happens." "Next time?" Professor Vex asked weakly. "Oh, there is always a next time," Maya said with the confidence of someone who had clearly never heard of the concept of peaceful retirement. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Professor. Someone has got to keep it safe." "And you have appointed yourself to this position?" Admiral Corks inquired. "Me?" "Oh, no, sir. I am just one human. But see, the thing about humans is that we tend to multiply when nobody is looking, and we all talk to each other, share ideas, techniques, that sort of thing." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Are you suggesting," Cadet Vorthak said slowly, "that there are more humans like you?" Maya's grin reached what could only be described as weaponized levels of cheerfulness. "Oh, Vorthak. Sweet, innocent Vorthak. I am not special. I am not unique. I am not even particularly good at this stuff compared to some of the folks back home." She paused, letting that sink in. "I am just the one they sent to school." The silence that followed was not the absence of sound. It was the presence of a universal realization that the galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. Admiral Corks closed all 6 of his eyes and tried to remember what peaceful retirement looked like. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could hear the universe laughing. 3 days had passed since Maya Thompson had casually announced her identity to the Galactic Defense Academy, and Admiral Corks was seriously considering early retirement. His office had been flooded with emergency communications from 47 different worlds, all asking variations of the same question. Exactly how many humans like Thompson were currently enrolled in military academies across the galaxy? The answer, unfortunately, was classified. The real answer was far worse than classified. It was terrifying. Cork stared at his personal datapad, scrolling through incident reports that had been trickling in since word spread about the human cadet. Apparently, Thompson was not an isolated case. There was Marcus Webb at the Andromeda Strategic Institute, who had somehow convinced an entire hive mind collective to surrender by challenging their queen to a dance battle. Then there was Lisa Park at the Outer Rim Combat School, who had defeated a Titan-class battle cruiser using nothing but a maintenance pod and what she called aggressive parallel parking. The door chimed, interrupting his increasingly dark thoughts about the future of galactic peace and his own sanity. "Enter," he commanded, though he suspected he already knew who it would be. Maya Thompson strolled in, looking as relaxed as someone heading to a picnic. Behind her trailed Professor Vex, whose compound eyes were twitching in a way that suggested he had been consuming far too much caffeine lately. "You wanted to see me, Admiral?" Maya asked, settling into the chair across from his desk with the casual confidence of someone who had never met a situation she could not make exponentially more complicated. "Indeed, Cadet Thompson. Professor Vex here has been sharing some interesting observations about your performance in his advanced tactics course." Vex cleared his throat nervously. "Admiral, in 30 years of teaching military strategy, I have never encountered a student quite like Thompson. Her approach to problem solving is—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Unprecedented." "How so?" Corks asked, though he was not entirely sure he wanted to know. Yesterday's exercise involved a standard hostage rescue scenario. 7-story building, 43 civilian hostiles, unknown number of enemy combatants, limited time frame. Standard protocol calls for careful reconnaissance, strategic entry points, coordinated team movement. "Sounds reasonable," Corks agreed. Thompson's solution was to crash a stolen transport through the top floor, rappel down the elevator shaft while playing loud music, and convince the hostage-takers that she was actually there to join their organization. Admiral Corks felt that familiar sensation of reality, packing its bags and heading for vacation. And the results? Complete mission success in under 12 minutes, Vex admitted reluctantly. All hostages rescued, all enemies captured alive, and somehow she managed to get them to pay for the damage to the building. "How exactly does one convince terrorists to cover property damage costs?" Corks asked, though he was beginning to realize that asking logical questions about human behavior was an exercise in futility. Maya shrugged. "I told them it was a membership fee for joining my fake criminal organization. Said we had excellent dental coverage and a really good retirement plan. They were so excited about the health benefits that they completely forgot they were supposed to be the bad guys." "This is what I am talking about," Professor Vex said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Thompson does not just think outside the box. She appears to be completely unaware that boxes exist." "Is this a problem?" Maya asked, sounding genuinely curious. "That depends," Admiral Corks said carefully, "on how one defines problem. Your methods are certainly effective, but they tend to have far-reaching consequences that are difficult to predict." "Like what?" "Well, for instance, the hostage-takers you convinced to join your fake organization have been sending recruitment materials to their friends. We now have 17 different criminal syndicates trying to apply for membership in a group that does not actually exist." Maya brightened considerably. "Oh, that could be useful. We could set up a whole fake criminal network, gather intelligence, maybe even redirect their activities towards something more socially beneficial, like competitive baking or aggressive gardening." "Aggressive gardening," Vex whispered. "Sure, really intense flower arranging, combat-level vegetable growing, that sort of thing. Turn their criminal energy into something productive." Admiral Corks made a mental note to increase security around the Academy's botanical gardens. "Cadet Thompson," he said, "there is another matter we need to discuss. Since your revelation about your identity, several other species have been expressing concerns about human integration into the galactic military structure." What kind of concerns? The kind that involve phrases like existential threat and complete tactical unpredictability, Professor Vex answered. Some council members are suggesting that humans might be too dangerous to train alongside other species. Maya's expression shifted from casual interest to something that might have been annoyance. Too dangerous? We're the ones keeping everyone safe. That is precisely the problem, Corks explained. Your definition of keeping people safe involves a level of collateral damage that makes most species very nervous. But it works. Yes, it works. That is what makes it so disturbing. The door chimed again, and Corks's assistant, a nervously efficient Quillarian named Zeep, practically bounced into the room. Admiral, emergency communication from the Galactic Council. They want an immediate conference about the human situation. Corks sighed deeply. Put them through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a dozen alien faces arranged in a semicircle. Council President Thex, a dignified Altarian with skin like polished metal, spoke first. Admiral Corks, we understand you have a human cadet who has been causing considerable discussion among our member worlds. That would be me, Maya said cheerfully, waving at the assembled council members. Hi there. Love what you have done with the whole galactic government thing. Very impressive. Several council members flinched visibly. Young human, President Thex continued, we have been reviewing reports of your activities, and we must say that your methods are highly unconventional. Thank you. I work hard to stay creative. That was not meant as a compliment, muttered Councillor Vrex, a Mantarian whose species valued careful planning above all else. Your approach to problem solving appears to involve maximum chaos with minimal regard for established protocols. Well, established protocols do not always work, Maya pointed out reasonably. Sometimes you have got to improvise. Improvise? Councillor Bleth, a crystalline being from the outer spiral, practically vibrated with indignation. You destroyed an entire mining facility. To save a colony of 2 million people, Maya replied. I thought that was a pretty good trade-off. The economic impact alone was significantly less than the economic impact of letting 2 million people get killed by void serpents, Maya interrupted. Plus, insurance covered most of the damage, and the crater makes a really nice lake now. The colonists love it. President Thex raised a hand for silence. The issue, Cadet Thompson, is not the effectiveness of your methods. It is their predictability. Our military strategies depend on being able to anticipate how our forces will behave in various situations. And humans are unpredictable? Maya asked. Catastrophically so, confirmed Councillor Vrex. We have run computer simulations of various conflict scenarios involving human military units. In 67% of cases, the simulations crashed because the human actions fell outside the parameters of logical possibility. Huh, Maya said thoughtfully. What happened in the other 33%? The humans won, President Thex admitted reluctantly. Usually in ways that violated several fundamental laws of physics and at least one treaty regarding acceptable battlefield conduct. Sounds about right, Maya agreed. Admiral Corks leaned forward. Council President, what exactly are you proposing? We have been discussing the possibility of establishing separate training facilities for human military personnel. Somewhere they can learn proper techniques without influencing other species. The room went very quiet. Maya tilted her head, and for the first time since he had met her, Admiral Corks saw something in her expression that was not cheerful casualness. It was something much sharper. You want to segregate us, she said softly. We want to ensure galactic stability, President Thex replied diplomatically, by keeping humans away from everyone else because we make you nervous. Because you make everyone nervous, Councillor Bleth corrected. Your species approaches warfare with a level of creative enthusiasm that borders on the pathological. Maya stood up slowly, and suddenly the room felt much smaller. Let me tell you something about humans, she said, and her voice had lost all traces of its earlier cheerfulness. We do not fight wars because we enjoy them. We fight them because someone has to, and we are really, really good at it. And the reason we are good at it is because we do not think like you do." She began pacing, and every eye in the room followed her movement. "You want predictable? Fine. Here is something predictable. Every time in human history that someone has tried to separate us, isolate us, or treat us like we are too dangerous to be around normal people, it has ended badly for everyone involved." "Are you threatening the council?" Counselor Vex asked, his voice barely steady. "I am educating you," Maya replied. "See, you are making a fundamental mistake about human nature. You think we are unpredictable because we are chaotic. But that is not it at all. We are unpredictable because we adapt, we learn, we improvise, and most importantly, we do not give up." She stopped pacing and looked directly at the holographic display. "You want to know what happens if you try to segregate human military personnel? I will tell you exactly what happens. We learn everything you teach us, then we go back to our own people and we teach them, and then we improve on it, and then we improve on the improvements. And before you know it, you have got a species that knows all your tactics, understands all your weaknesses, and has absolutely no reason to trust you." The silence stretched uncomfortably. "On the other hand," Maya continued, her cheerful tone returning, "if you let us stay integrated with everyone else, we learn from each other. We share techniques. We become better together than any of us could be separately. And when the next big threat comes along, and there is always a next big threat, you have got humans fighting alongside you instead of wondering if they should be fighting against you." President Thex was quiet for a long moment. "And if we find your methods too disruptive," Maya's grin returned full force, "then you help us develop better methods. See, the thing about humans is that we are always willing to learn new ways to solve problems, especially if those new ways involve bigger explosions. Bigger explosions are not always the solution," Counselor Bleth protested weakly. "No," Maya agreed. "Sometimes you need smaller, more precisely targeted explosions, or really creative, non-explosive solutions. The point is, we are flexible." Admiral Corks realized he was holding his breath. Around the room, Professor Vex and Zeep were doing the same thing. Finally, President Thex spoke. "Very well, Cadet Thompson. Humans will remain integrated within the existing military academy structure. However, we will be monitoring the situation very closely." "Fair enough," Maya replied. "Just remember, Council President, monitoring humans too closely tends to make us paranoid. And paranoid humans are significantly more dangerous than cheerful humans." "Is that a threat?" Counselor Vex asked. "It is a friendly warning," Maya said sweetly. "The kind of warning you give to people you like and want to keep liking you." The transmission ended, leaving the room in blessed silence. After a moment, Professor Vex spoke up. "Thompson, that was either brilliant diplomacy or the most sophisticated threat I have ever witnessed." "Why not both?" Maya asked, settling back into her chair. "Humans are multifaceted." Admiral Corks rubbed his temples with all four of his primary hands. "Cadet Thompson, do you realize you just essentially negotiated policy with the Galactic Council?" "Did I? Cool. Do I get extra credit for that?" "You get to continue your education without starting an interspecies incident." "Even better. So, what is next? More tactical exercises? Advanced weapons training? Oh, can we do the one where we have to infiltrate an enemy base using only kitchen utensils?" Professor Vex made a sound that might have been laughing or crying. "There is no such exercise." Maya's eyes lit up. "There is now. I have got some really great ideas about combat applications for soup ladles." As she bounced out of the room, already planning her next impossible solution to an unsolvable problem, Admiral Corks realized something important. The galaxy had not become more dangerous because humans had joined the galactic military. The galaxy had become more dangerous because humans existed at all. And somehow, impossibly, that made him feel safer than he had in years. After all, when the universe inevitably tried to kill everyone again, It was nice to know that humanity would be there to tell the universe exactly where it could stick its hostile intentions. He made a mental note to increase the Academy's insurance coverage. Something told him they were going to need it.